All right, we're going to start today at the Holiday Inn Express. Not quite Margaritaville, but it will have to do. This was 2005. I was on a cross-country trip with my family. We were headed from Dallas, Texas, where I lived at the time, to Boise, Idaho, where my in-laws lived. At the time, 2005, I still do, but I had 6 kids aged 12 to 6 months. It's a 26-hour drive. It's brutal. 26 hours. Now, keep in mind, this was 2005. This is before the days of the iPhone, being able to pop out your phone, see what hotels are available, make a reservation. This was back in the days when you would stop and see if they had rooms available. And the reason we didn't have a reservation ahead of time is you never know how far you want to drive when you've got that many kids before you're just going to give up and quit. So this was day 2. We were heading north in Utah, heading up to Idaho. We got to Ogden, Utah. If you know anything about Utah, when you hit Ogden moving north on Interstate 15, you have a decision to make. Do we want to stop now, or do we want to go another 3 hours? Because there is nothing for about 3 hours when you get to Ogden, Utah. And it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were just done. So we pulled over at the exit where there's all the hotels. You know how they tend to clump together. Wagon Wheel Motel. My wife said, nope. She doesn't do that kind of crusty hotel. Howard Johnson's, nope. 2 or 3 others. Holiday Inn Express looked like it might be clean enough to fit my wife's checkbox. Went in. They did have rooms. We needed to. I started to check in, and as I was checking in, I noticed on the counter next to where I was paying a little sign in a plexiglass holder that said, "Welcome to the Holiday Inn Express, home of the Stay Smart bathroom featuring the Stay Smart shower head by Kohler." And there's a picture of a big old shower head. And I thought, whatever. Who cares? There's always signs, you can't pay attention to everything. But we went and got in the room. The kids start jumping around, making a mess. I look over at the TV. On the dresser next to the TV, there's a sign. It says, "Welcome to your room. At your earliest convenience, check out the Stay Smart bathroom featuring the Stay Smart shower head by Kohler," and a picture of a big old shower head. And now I'm a little intrigued. I'm a marketing guy, so I thought, well, let me go check this out. So I go into the bathroom, and sure enough, on the counter, I encounter the third sign. The third sign said, "Welcome to the Stay Smart bathroom," featuring, and actually had a list of 4 things. The first thing was oversized plush bath towels. And I looked over, and they looked kind of big, and I gave them a little squeezer, and they seemed kind of plush. All right, whatever. Number 2, bowed-out shower curtain rod. Now, this was 2005. This was bathroom technology at its finest at that time. Pretty common right now. But at the time, so I looked at it, you get in there, and it's bowed out, so other people's naked doesn't touch you. That's good. I thought that's pretty cool. Number 3, designer toiletries. And I looked down, and these little bottles, they looked kind of fancy. Maybe French, I don't know. And then number 4, the Stay Smart shower head by Kohler. And there was a picture of that on this third sign. So I looked over to see the Stay Smart shower head, but I couldn't see it because that bowed out shower curtain rod was closed. So I grabbed it, and it was kind of like parting the heavens. Light shined, angels were singing, and there it was in all of its glory and all of its splendor, the Stay Smart shower head by Kohler. And you want to know how I knew that's what it was? Because they put a sign on it. This was my 2005 flip phone camera picture of the sign. I was so taken aback that they actually put the sign on the actual shower head. And you can see there, it's got 3 gourmet settings. I think it was rejuvenating, relaxing, and reinvigorating or something like that. So I did the only thing I could think of. I locked the door and I took a shower. It's great. I want to tell you, very well done, Holiday Inn Express. This was a great shower. And at this point of the speech, you say to yourself, awesome. And what on earth does that have to do with anything? And the answer is this has everything to do with differentiating your company. Now, I'm going to leave this story. I'm going to set it aside. We're going to come back to it. But here's what I want you to be thinking about. I want you to be thinking about this. Pointing at your shower head in your business. What are the things that you do that you want people to notice, that you want people to pay attention to, that you can point at repeatedly to the extent where they give those things that you're telling them to point at more value in their minds than they otherwise would if you just simply failed to point? Because here's what happened with Holiday Inn Express. I did a little research. Here's what I found out. Not only were they putting signs in the hotels at 4 different spots to get people to notice the shower head, they were also running television and other kinds of campaigns touting the Stay Smart bathroom, featuring the Stay Smart shower head by Kohler. You might remember those commercials. They make you smarter. Remember that? The bathroom makes you smarter? Here's what else I found. They did surveys. And here's what the surveys were trying to figure out. They were trying to figure out how much does the marketing influence people's perception of specific parts of a hotel stay? So they did before and after surveys. In the before surveys, they asked people, what did you think about? And then they listed all these different things that are part of a hotel stay. What did you think about the parking? What did you think about the friendliness of the staff? What did you think about your room, the bed, the pillows, the pool, the food, all the different components of a stay? And then they tucked somewhere in the middle, because they didn't want people to think it was super obvious. Oh, what did you think about the bathroom? What about the shower head? And then you could rate it 1 to 5 stars. Before they started pointing at the shower head rated a good solid 4.4 stars. In other words, people said, it's pretty good. After the campaign, they rated the shower head 4.9 stars. Key point, same shower head, nothing changed, nothing was different. The performance, the size, everything was exactly the same, except they had started pointing at it, and people noticed it. And when people noticed it, they started to rate it as being better than before. This is the premise of everything we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about identifying and pointing at your shower heads. All right, let's leave that there. We'll come back to it. Let's talk about, why am I here? Who am I? Well, my name is Rich Harshaw, and started a company called Level 10 Contractor. Originally, it was called Monopolize Your Marketplace. I've spoken at CCN conferences, I don't know, what was it, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. Spoke at a few of them. I've known some of your members for a long, long time. I actually had conversation with the original owner, but I rebranded my company in 2019 to Level 10 Contractor. Started in '94 as a general marketing consultant, worked with all kinds of companies. Started specializing in this industry in 2005. The only kinds of companies that I work with are home services companies like air conditioning, plumbing, and things like that. But more of my clients are remodelers. Windows, siding, gutter, roofing, kitchens, bathrooms, sunrooms, those kinds of things. Garage doors, got some not as mainstream kinds of things in there, but that's what we do. We're really good at it. Like I said, we used to be known as Monopolize Your Marketplace. Worked with a lot of really big, successful companies. In the introduction, they mentioned that I'd grown my business to $80 million. That was actually a little bit out of context. I want to set the record straight. I do not run an $80 million company, but I have grown companies to $80 million. It was referencing, Hanson's was one of my clients up in Detroit. And they sold their business when it was doing about $80 million in sales in 2017. When you sell a business doing $80 million in sales, it's a nice payday. I've worked with several companies in the 30, 40, $50 million range. My biggest client currently is a group of air conditioning companies in California that collectively do about $400 million in sales. But I also work with a lot of small companies. Work with companies that are in the $1 million range. If you're in the $1 million, $2, $3 million range, what you're going to learn today is going to have a tremendous amount of impact on your company now and into the future. Because what we're going to do today is we're going to try to set a sail that's going to impact your marketing moving forward. If you're in the $5 to $8 million range and trying to, quote, make the jump to $10 million, this is going to be a major impact. If you're a $30 million company, still is going to have an impact. I get calls from larger companies saying, hey, we're good at what we do. Obviously, you don't get to $30 million being dumb. You don't. But we don't feel like we're telling our story in a way that's helping us differentiate ourselves, get the prices that we want, and get the profitability that we want. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, okay? All right. Those are the things that we do. Marketing strategy, website, advertising, TV, radio, Facebook, social media, things like that. Wrote a book in 2019 called Unlocking Unlimited Lead Flow. If you'll notice the sub-headline there, it says, a blueprint for remodeling and home services contractors to make the jump to $10 million or more. I want you to know something about everything that comes out of my mouth, whether it's in a book, whether it's in a podcast. Everything is 100% specific to this industry. This book was written specifically to remodeling contractors. The podcast that I run has almost 600 episodes. It's every single day. People ask me, why do you run a daily podcast? That seems like a pain, and it is. But the reason is because I'm going to cover lots of different topics on marketing, and if you look at a given topic on a given day and it doesn't seem like something you're interested in, guess what? Skip it. There'll be another one tomorrow. Let me say this about this podcast, just to give you a little idea. If there's a marketing topic that you're interested in, that you're wondering about, that you'd like information on, I promise you 1,000,000% it's in the 600 episodes. Somewhere. Search. All right. Here's what we do. Help remodeling and home services companies make the jump to $10 million plus by generating unlimited lead flow. It all starts with the leads. Now, I love CCN because it's not only about the leads. There's a lot of other components to your business. But from my perspective, as the marketing person showing up to give a speech today, we're going to focus a little bit more narrowly in on the marketing part and generating leads. So here's what you want to have happen. On the screen, you see a bunch of green apples. Those represent your competitors. You're the red apple because you're different and you're better, right? There's one guy that shook his head. Yeah, this guy over here, he's different and better. Everybody else doesn't. Do you think you're different and better than your competitors? Thank you. Because if you don't think you're different and better than your competitors, guess what? You deserve to, well, I was going to say you deserve to lose. You deserve to be mediocre. Here's what I've found. Talking to business owners all over the country, you generally tend to find business owners that say, we do things different, we do things better. There's reasons to do business with us. The problem is, it's hard to find out what those things are. This is what you want. This is what you think is happening. You think you're the red apple in the sea of green, but here's what's actually happening. You're just another green apple. Now, I want to be super specific with this. Here's what I did not just say. I did not just say, your company is like everyone else's. I said, from the perspective of the market who pays your bills, it appears that you look like you're probably about like everyone else. This is the worst thing I can imagine, is you actually truly are differentiated and better and more valuable, and people can't tell. Now, one of the things I know that CCN focuses on to a certain extent, I don't know how much, I'm going to say a lot. If I'm wrong, throw fruit at me. Higher prices than your competitors. Here's the great thing about higher prices. Higher prices means higher margins, which means you have more money to do stuff with, like marketing, like human resources, like running your business the right way, like profit. And if you've got higher prices, your business is going to run a lot more smoothly, but it's hard to get those high prices. Let's talk about sales for a minute. I don't get into the realm of sales training. It's not my thing. I'm a fan of it. I believe in it, and I think it's important. But here's the problem with sales training. Let's say that there's a spectrum from A to Z. A is where a prospect very first entertains the idea of maybe buying whatever it is you sell. Let's say that you sell roofs, and the prospect is thinking, yeah, maybe I need a new roof. Could be anything, but we'll just use roofs. That's point A. All the way over here at point Z, this is where the prospect says, here's my money, let me sign the contract. You with me? Here's the problem that we see a lot of times in this industry. Your salesman walks in at point A, maybe point B, maybe point C or D or E, and has to do all the heavy lifting from point A, B, C, D, all the way to point Z in an hour and a half in the customer's home. That's hard to do. That's why there's such an emphasis on sales training, because you have to find just the exact right person that can pull that off. That's not easy. Here's what I want to do. I want to come over here to point A, And I want, through your marketing, which includes things like your website, highly important, things like your advertising and your messaging, stuff that people see at the home show, stuff that they see when your person knocks on their door in a canvassing environment, things that they see online, your social media. I want to push them from point A down to about somewhere in the LMNOP range, so that when your salesperson shows up, this much lifting has already been done. It's been accomplished. Now the job becomes much easier, especially if all of this stuff from A down to LMNOP is demonstrating who you are, how you're different, why you're better, what people can expect when they do business with you, and creating a value proposition that makes them not only willing to, but eager to pay you your higher prices, even if they're holding 2 or 3 other competitive bids in their hand. I don't want to put all of the onus of selling on the salesperson. I want to put it onto you as a business owner, if you're a business owner. If you're not, then you know what I meant. And I want to do part of the selling before you ever show up in the home. Okay? I'm going to tell you a little story here. There was a study done in Germany where they brought people in and they said, we're going to give you 4 different colas to drink, and we want you to put these electrode things on your head, whatever you call those, and we're going to monitor your brain activity, and we're going to see what happens when you drink these different colas. So the first cola they drank was called Coca-Cola. The second one was called Pepsi-Cola. The third one was a local store brand, and the fourth one had no name. It was they told the people drinking it that it was an experimental brand that they were test marketing to see how people liked it before they actually released it into the marketplace. You with me so far? So people drank the Coca-Cola. People drank the Pepsi-Cola. And here's what they found when people drank Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola. The electrodes showed that their brain activity was lighting up the portion of their brain that is known as the reward center. Christmas tree lights, reward. I'm drinking Coke, I'm drinking Pepsi, this is a positive thing. But when they were drinking the store brand or the unknown brand, the reward center in their brain didn't light up. What lit up was what is considered the values judgment part of the brain. In other words, the person was trying to decide, do I like this? And they were evaluating it based on different factors in their mind. What does it taste like? What do I know about it? Now, here's the question. Would you rather have people have the reward center part of their brain light up or the value judgment part of their brain light up? This story has a punchline. In all 4 circumstances, they were actually drinking the same cola. They weren't drinking 4 different colas. They only thought they were drinking 4 different colas. That story right there is probably the most powerful thing you're going to hear at this entire conference. If you really internalize and understand what that means, here's what that means. Let me be real specific. If we can, here we go, we're going to connect some dots, point at some shower heads to get people to understand who we are, how we're different, why we're better, what they can expect when they do business with us. And we do it with enough frequency and enough consistency over time, we start to build. Here comes the word. You ready for it? What's the word? Brand. Brand in remodeling? Yes. Brand in remodeling. You start to build that brand. Then when somebody needs a roof, instead of saying, Google, who do I get a roof from? Like there's this whole conversation about SEO, and it's an important one. But you realize that SEO only matters to people that don't know who to buy from. When was the last time you Googled what cola to buy? Well, it's a little bit different because you go to the store and they're just sitting on the shelf. So fair enough, you don't need to Google it. But when you go to the store, when was the last time you went, okay, let's see, Coke, got it, Pepsi, Big K Cola, well, it's a little bit cheaper. Then you start evaluating, well, who's coming over? Who's going to see this crap? That's not how it works. You say to me, well, I am not Coca-Cola. I don't have the budget. It's a whole different situation. And you're right, it's a whole different situation. But there's parts of that whole different situation that work to your advantage. Namely, you don't have to market to the whole freaking world. All you have to market to is whoever's in your service area. And within that group of people, you only have to market to the people who fit your demographics. You're in Cleveland. Awesome. Guess what? It's a lot smaller than the whole planet that Coca-Cola has to worry about. You say, well, I don't even have enough money to handle all of Cleveland. Well, guess what? If you've got some money and you can start focusing on a little piece of Cleveland, you can start to change their perception. And then when you get good at it and you start making a little more money, now you've got a little bit more money to invest in your marketing, you can start to expand that footprint of where your messaging is going. And then you can expand it a little bit more. You can expand it a little bit more. I mentioned earlier a company called Hanson's. You guys might know. Do you know Brian Elias? Really cool and weird, but cool guy. If you know Brian, if he was sitting there, he would be nodding. I asked him one time in a conference like this, he was sitting in the back. I said, Brian, when did you start advertising on television? 1989. It's a long time ago. It takes time. When's the best time to plant a tree? Answer, 20 years ago. When's the second best time to plant a tree? Today. Today. So here's what we're going to talk about. I'm kind of going in a couple of different directions. Here's what we're not going to talk about. I'm not going to talk in detail about advertising. I'll give you some examples of some stuff in a minute. That's a whole different conversation, though, advertising. We could talk about radio and television. We could talk about Facebook. We could talk about YouTube. Lots of different ways to advertise. There's also a whole other conversation called search engine optimization and how to get to those people that don't know who to call. But today we're going to go to the foundation, the heart of the matter. We're going to talk about how to differentiate so that when you go and you start advertising, when you start creating your website, you're saying the right things to move that needle. So we're going to the foundation today. This is the core element, okay? Here's what I found. Most marketing, it's full of platitudes. What's a platitude? Words or phrases that are drearily commonplace or predictable that lack power to evoke interest through overuse and repetition. But they're stated like they're original or significant. Have you heard any of these before? We got the best service, highest quality, largest selection, free estimates. Here's a good one. Family-owned business. Why would somebody care if your family owned the business? Well, it's because we're going to treat them better. Automatically? That's the connection? I don't know. In business since 1431 BC. These are platitudes. Doesn't mean they're wrong. It doesn't mean they're bad. It means they're a starting point, and we've got to do better than this, okay? If you use platitudes primarily in your marketing, you start to look like all your competitors, your websites, home shows, print ads, all of the usual stuff. It all starts to look like your competitors, okay? Your apples all kind of look the same. Let's do a quick Google search. I recommend that when you go back to your office, that you go to an incognito window, because if you don't, Google will pull your company up first and you'll think you're killing it in search engine optimization, but you're actually not, because Google just knows that you've been to your site 1,000 times. Search for what you sell, like a customer would. Double pane, double hung windows. Click on the results. Here's what you're going to find. A lot of platitudes, a lot of companies that look awfully similar to one another. I spoke at a James Hardie conference. So I pulled up some James Hardie companies. This is when I lived in Dallas. I live in Utah right now, but I lived in Dallas. So I pulled this up. I wanted to see what comes up when you type in James Hardie siding in Dallas. Here's what comes up. Allied Siding and Windows. Since 1988, Allied Siding and Windows has serviced over 40,000 satisfied customers in home improvement projects in Texas. Allied Siding and Windows installs more hardy plank siding than any other company in Texas. Do you believe that's true? I'll tell you this, every single Ford dealership is the largest one in Texas. All of them. I know, I lived there for a long time. I saw all their commercials. They're all the largest Ford dealership. Somehow all of them are. It's amazing. Did you guys realize that objectively speaking, Papa John's Pizza, because it has better ingredients, actually does have better pizza? They've done studies and they have shown that BMW is actually the ultimate driving machine. It's not just a slogan, it's true. You see what I'm saying? This is the second thing that came up. RJ Construction, nice home, good. Everything looks fine. Let's scroll down. When I show you a website, I'm going to show you several websites as we go through today. As I go to the next slide, that just shows scrolling down because I can't scroll down when I'm not live on the internet. So this is what happens when you scroll down. You see this. First of all, that's a mess. But here's what it does. It just talks about hardy plank siding. Hardy plank siding is the best siding because hardy plank siding is better, and it's the best because it's the best, and it's better because we're better. That's basically what it says. I summarized. Why would somebody who is searching for hardy plank siding in Dallas need to be told that hardy plank siding is better? Wouldn't they already know that? Wouldn't the operative question be, why should I buy it from you instead of somebody else? And the answer is, we have no idea. I don't know, but if you ask for a free consultation, we'll send our salesperson in, and he'll start right there at position A. And he'll try to do all the heavy lifting, all the way down to the end. It's hard. Anybody ever see Charlie Brown cartoons, holiday specials? Some of you are a little bit young, so you don't know, but I'm not looking at anybody in particular to say that you're probably old enough to remember. Let's make the sound. Everybody together. Go. That's your marketing. Doesn't mean it's wrong. Doesn't mean it's bad. Doesn't mean you're an idiot. It means kind of like Charlie Brown's mother. I think that the interpretation of that is that whatever an adult is saying is probably not interesting and relevant to me as a kid. Whatever. It all sounds the same. And that's kind of what's happening with your marketing. We got to fix that, okay? Now, if you're the kind of person that takes notes at events, this is a good note to take, and I'm not offended if you take a picture with your camera. This is what is called identity. Now, the origin of this concept has been called unique selling proposition. It's a very similar concept. I prefer to call it identity, but I don't want you to get hung up on the semantics. Here's what identity is. It's words, phrases, and images that are articulated with power, precision, and passion that instantly, definitively communicate who you are, how you're different and better, what customers can expect when doing business with you. This is identity. Now, here's the funny thing about this. You already know what these things are, generally speaking, because you run your business. However, probably 50% of the things that really make you unique and different, you don't even recognize because you're too close to it. We sit down with business owners all the time. Well, what makes you unique and different? Let's just start real broad there. Oh, quality. Great. Like, what do you mean? I'll give you an example. This is years and years ago. This is before I started working with contractors exclusively. I worked with a company that built video game cabinets. Pac-Man, right? Got the cabinets made out of wood, it's got a screen on it, joysticks, stuff like that. They made those cabinets. And I asked them, what makes your cabinets better? They said they're stronger, they last longer, they're better. Now, for video game cabinets, that's probably pretty important, right? Because these kids are going to destroy these things. This is back in the old days before they just sat at home on their Xbox in their basement all day. And I said, great, what makes your cabinet stronger and better and last longer? And they said, well, they're better. I know, but how are they better? And they said, oh, I got it. And a guy's conference table was like six people. He says, oh, we put 14 screws on each side. Is that a lot? Oh, yeah, that's a lot. Compared to what? Well, our competitors only put 7. We put 14. All right, it's pretty good. And we also put this special screw head on there so that kids can't get their dad's screwdriver and unscrew it. It happens. All right, what else? Well, they thought about it. They said, oh, cleat and bracket construction. I was like, I don't even know what that is. And so, well, it's like where it comes together on the edges, it's got cleats and brackets and they holds better. I said, okay. So what about your competitors? No, well, they do that too. That's just how you do it. You can't actually build a cabinet without cleat and bracket construction. Okay, so it's probably not a big deal then, right? No, not really. Well, what else? Like 15 minutes later, a dude puts his hand up and he's like, well, we use dowel rods. I was like, okay, I know what a dowel rod is, but in this context, what does that mean? He says, well, we countersink a hole on this side, and on this side where the wood comes together, then we put a 1-inch poplar, which I discovered was hardwood, dowel rod in there. And then we use industrial glue, and we put it in there. So in addition to the cleat and bracket, in addition to the screws, it holds it, gives it structural integrity. All right, sounds pretty good. How many dowel rods? They'll look around. I don't know. Was it more like 10? More like 20? We don't know. Is there somebody who does know? Well, probably Dan. He's the guy that drills the holes. Can you get Dan up here? A few minutes later, a guy named Dan walks in. What do you want? You know the dowel rods that you're putting in the thing? How many are there in a cabinet? Dan says, I don't know. Never counted. Could you go count and come back and tell us? Dan walks off to go count so he can come back and tell us. While he's gone, I asked this important question. Do any of your competitors use dowel rods? No. None of them? No, none of them. Why not? Takes longer, costs more money. Dan staggers back into the room. I got the number. 172. Is there even room for 172? Yeah, I've got a template. So many on this side, so many on this side. This is back in the 90s. They were running ads in an industry magazine that went out to family fun centers and bars and arcades and stuff like that. And in the magazine, it had a picture of their cabinet. The company was called Dynamo. It said Dynamo Cabinets, and there was a picture of a cabinet. And if you look down at the bullet points, down here in the fine print somewhere, there was a bullet point that said, dowel rod construction. We re-engineered that ad. Here's what it said. If the ad was this big, okay, watch my hands carefully. If the ad was this big, we took that much space and we put the word 172. Hardwood dowel rods reinforce every Dynamo cabinet. Other cabinet brands inexplicably have 0. We want to make sure that our cabinets can dish out any punishment that your customers can throw at it. Oh, write this down. In its essence, marketing is just storytelling. That's all it is. Marketing is just storytelling. So if you ever look at your ads and you notice that your ads say things like, if you call today, 30% off. If you call by 7, we'll give you 3 windows when you buy 3. If you notice that, let me help you understand what story you're telling. You'll get the best deal and we're cheapest. That's the story you're telling. And then your salesman shows up. Remember where he's showing up? Point A. I'm about to fall off this thing. He's so far close to the edge. Maybe he's at point B because the prospect does know something. You're cheaper. Then you sit down with a company story and you say, oh, well, yeah, hey, our company story is blah, 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 blah. And the prospect's thinking, yeah, but I want 3 free. Because here was the brand promise that I got from you, 3 free. well, our windows are more expensive because of blah, blah, blah. And they're starting to think, holy crap, this stuff might be expensive. I thought it was cheap. That's why I called them. This is why sales appointments take 3 hours, because you're trying to overcome all this inertia of all the bull crap that you told them in the ad, which isn't actually really true, and trying to get them to understand that you're actually valuable and that your stuff's actually good and that you're worth more money. I've got a client right now, a window company in New England. We are having the hardest time getting results for this guy. You want to know why? Because he has spent the last 25 years bombarding that marketplace up there with stupid messages about how cheap he is, and he goes in and hard sells him. He's like the classic old school guy with the tin man attitude, and we're going to go in and we're going to one-call close you, we're going to beat the crap out of you, and he does it, and he's good at it, and it works. And then people go online and are like, I hate this company, they effing suck. Man. I'm like, all right, we got some lifting to do here, buddy. Let's start talking about who you are and how you're different and why you're better. And we put it out there in the marketplace. And after 2 weeks of putting this in the marketplace, it's not really moving the needle. And the guy's like, hey, this isn't working. I'm like, 25 years, buddy. It's hard. When's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the second best time? Today. But understand, if you plant a tree in hostile soil, it's going to be hard. It's okay. It can be done. You're just going to have patience. All right. I'm a little bit off track, but not much. I think this is all important stuff. Let's talk about confirmation bias. We're getting back to the Holiday Inn Express here. People look for evidence to support what they already believe. They ignore or minimize evidence that goes against their beliefs. We see this in every facet of life. The most obvious place where we see this is in politics. What do you think about this guy? Yay! This is not a political conversation. Because what do you think about this guy? No, don't say it. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. I went on to LeBron James' Twitter the other day. I wanted to see what people were saying about his tweet about the shooting. And here's what I found. There were people that were saying, I hate LeBron James. He sucks. His sponsor should kill him. And it was a lot of people. And then right below that, there was people that were like, you don't understand. LeBron is right. Here's what can happen. You can watch a video of somebody stabbing somebody and getting shot, and your conclusion of what you're going to think about that will be almost exclusively influenced by what you already think. You realize that, right? And then we like, well, they're wrong. No. 25 years of thinking away. It's hard to overcome. Not having a political conversation with you right now. I'm having a marketing conversation with you right now. And it happens to be a political conversation because psychology of how people think and make decisions, it's the same in all aspects of your life. People look for evidence to support what they already believe. They ignore or minimize evidence that goes against their beliefs. This is why if you've been telling the market for 25 years that if you buy 3 windows, I'll give you 3 free, that's what they think. Here's the great thing about what I'm talking about today. And here's why I really want you to take this journey with me called identity. You have an opportunity to form the opinions in people's minds and lead them to believe what you want them to believe. I'm not talking about lying to people and being dishonest and making people believe stuff that's not true. I'm talking about how, okay, let's just get this out of the way. If you're in this room and you're a member of CCN, you're already a cut above. Nobody joins CCN because they're like, yeah, we suck and we screw people and maybe they can show us how to do it better. That is not how CCN works. You're here because you're trying to, it's like a pursuit of excellence kind of thing. I think I'm right with that. Yes? Give me some confirmation here. Thank you. That's my belief, confirmation bias. If that's the case, here's what we've got to do. We've got to find your story and tell it better. Because the story's already good. We just got to tell it better. And then we can start to influence what people think about you in a positive way. In a positive way. Okay? And that was a problem just now with the animation. It was supposed to put up the picture of the sign hanging from the Holiday Inn Express shower. So just put that mental image. That's confirmation bias, right? Here's a shower head. It's awesome. It's big. It's better. We're going to tell you about it at the front desk. We're going to tell you about it next to the television. We're going to tell you about it on the sink next to in the bathroom, and we're also going to put a sign on it. We want you to notice it. We want you to see that it's better. Let me ask you this. What's your opinion of most hotel shower heads that you stay in? And the answer is, you don't know because you don't notice it because it's one of 1,000 things going on in your life. The only time you notice it if it's particularly good or if it's particularly bad. If you go in there and it's like decrepit and it's like squirting out rusty water, then you notice. If it has no pressure whatsoever, then you notice. If it's kind of big and fancy like the one at Margaritaville, that's kind of a cool place you got here. Then you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. Here's what we want to do. We want to point at things so people will notice it, okay? What do you want people to know about you? There's certain things that you do really, really well. Correct? Correct. There's reasons that customers love you. What are they? The key is to identify those things, articulate them in a way that is impossible to miss. If a prospect can't immediately tell what those things are, then you lose. You lose opportunity. Best case scenario, you throw your salesperson into a hostile environment. Worst case scenario, and I'm going to give you the worst case scenario here. You ready for it? Your salesman never even gets an opportunity to go out there and try to sell because they never even called you in the first place. Because A, they didn't even know about you, or B, if they did know about you, they saw you and they're like, yeah, whatever. They look like everybody else. I'll just keep looking. Oh, here's somebody. Call them instead. This happens on the internet all the time. People see your website and they're like, oh, that's pretty. And then they click and they go to another company. They're like, oh, that's pretty too. You know, we're in an era of WordPress, right? You know this. WordPress, it's hard to build a crappy looking website now. So here's the metric that people use when it comes to websites. Well, it looks pretty. Also in 2021, everybody hates beauty pageants because everybody's finally realized that there's probably more to a human than the way she looks and parades around in a swimsuit. Let's grow up a little bit in that regard and also in the things that we want to communicate about your company. If it becomes strictly a beauty contest, here's what's going to happen. You're going to compete with the other companies that are beautiful in their appearance. They've got nice trucks too. They've got nice polo shirts for their people too. They have a nice looking website too. Their ads look nice too. Well, guess what? I just described probably your top 15 or 20 competitors. Then it comes down to, well, what do you like, Miss Oklahoma or Miss Florida? I don't know. It's personal preference. We don't want personal preference. We want to go above and beyond this to things that are actually crucial and consequential in the decision-making process. You have to tell people what to expect, and here's the key point right now. Ready? It all comes together right now. Bang. You have to point at your shower head. How do you do it? Well, that's what we're going to talk about now. Oh, sorry. Boy, this thing goes all kinds of backwards if you push the backward button. All right, take your picture. You're welcome. All right. I think it's on video, right? So people can just watch this later. Identity becomes the hub of all of your marketing messaging. The hub of capital A, capital L, underlined, bold, circled, green check mark. All of your marketing efforts. Your website, print ads, online ads, TV, radio, home shows, phone scripts. Yes, phone scripts. Does it make a difference what you say to people when they call to set an appointment? It makes a ton of difference what you say when people call to make an appointment. Because here's one way to make an appointment. Okay, that's going to be Chad that's going to be out there tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Great. Make sure that both parties are there, blah, blah, blah. We'll see you tomorrow at 7 o'clock. That's one way to confirm an appointment, set and confirm an appointment. Here's another way to set and confirm an appointment. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, we're so excited to come out there. I don't know if you've been on our website or not, but do you know that the main reason that people do business with us is X? This is where you fill in your identity. Don't actually say X. That would be dumb. Yeah, by the way, because X, Y, and Z, whatever, whatever, whatever. And it takes about 20 or 30 seconds to say this. You say, well, we don't have 20 or 30 seconds to say this. Great, don't say it. It's a free country. You can do whatever you want. I'm just telling you that 30 seconds will make a huge difference, because here's what happens. If we do this identity thing right, like I'm going to show you as we go through the rest of this presentation, and you put it in all of these things that are around the identity, then people are going to call you more like here. And then when you tell them one more point of contact, hey, when Chad comes out, I don't know if you know this, but here's something about us that you need to know. One more step. Here's a good quote for you. Victory goes to the one with superior forces at the point of contact. This is from Lao Tzu, The Art of War. I never read the book, but I saw the quote. Victory goes to the one with superior forces at the point of contact. Question, what are the points of contact that are important? Answer, everything on that slide right now. And if your point of contact says, buy 3 windows, get 3 free, and that's the main thrust of everything you say every time you open your mouth. By the way, I did not say don't have a buy 3, get 3 window sale. I did not say that is a bad thing and you shouldn't do it. I said if that is what people are hearing from you consistently over time for the 20 years that you've been growing that grove of trees, that's a problem. Question. Search engine optimization. Making sure people find your website. His question was, what is SEO? SEO, search engine optimization. Okay. So let's take a look at what this looks like in real life. This is a website called Upscale Remodeling. This is a screenshot, not an actual website. You can look this up later. Just make a note. Upscale Remodeling, Ithaca, New York. The thing that you see on the top with that picture is what's called a slider. So when people look at it, after a few seconds, it slides to another one. Here's what it says. We focus on every single detail of every single job. That's how we guarantee 100% satisfaction, start to finish, no exceptions. Now, does anybody remember the definition of identity? Words, phrases, and images articulated with what? Who remembers? Power, precision, passion. Yes or no? Then it slides to another one. If we scroll down, we see this. Welcome to stress-free, quality first, not done until you say it's done remodeling. Successful remodeling does not happen on accident. It's deliberate, measured, and absolutely on purpose. We're sticklers for details. We obsess over perfection. So we're not the fastest. We're not the cheapest. What's this called? Price conditioning. Do you want to know what the number one reason that your salesman doesn't close on the first call? Do you know what it is? Sticker shock. They thought it was going to be $10,000. Your salesman walks in and it's $16,000. And it's not that they don't have $16,000. It's not that they don't agree and believe that it's worth $16,000 after he's gone through this whole thing that he says. It's that it's so far off from what they were expecting an hour and a half or 2 hours ago that they hesitate. They're like, geez, man, is it really that expensive? I don't know. Oh, I got to check with my brother-in-law. He's my accountant. We're going to Florida for vacation next week. Call us when we get back. Here, let me go back to what we talked about earlier. Let me help fill in the dots. If you start here at point A, and they're thinking 10,000, and your guy tries to get them to come in at 16,000, but you haven't done this heavy lifting before the salesperson ever showed up, I got news for you. They got a wedding in Florida to get to. That's my euphemism for call me later. It's always a wedding. It's always in Florida. Here we are in Florida. Maybe we've got weddings to go to. All right, so I'm not going to go through these in detail. I'm going to do this instead. I'm going to show you this slide. Take a picture. This is a good one to take a picture of. Take a look at some of these websites. Go through them, and you'll see what I'm talking about. There's more. These actually have sort of a roofing slant to them because I used this slide, quite frankly, for a roofing presentation I did. But there's other ones in other industries that I could show you as well. Windows, doors, siding, et cetera, et cetera. It's the one on the bottom middle, upscale. Yep. I think I have a pointer on here, pretty sure. Oh, yeah, boom. It's green, nice. All right, so check those out. Here's the most important part of this now that we've kind of put the idea out there is how do you do it? And I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to want to have your phone ready because there's some slides you're going to want to take pictures of. They're important, okay? Here's what we're going to do is identify 2 to 5 points from what I call the 5 pillars of identity. I'm going to show this to you in just a minute, the 5 pillars of identity. Then you're going to find stories, examples, and comparisons to bring the identity points to life. You're going to write blog posts to tell the stories that you're going to put on your website. That will benefit humans and Google. Then you transform those blog posts into videos, advertisements, social media, things like that. Starts with finding the points and then telling the story. So let me go through this process with you. The 5 pillars of identity. This is based on decades, literally, of work in the industry, knowing what the typical kinds of things are for remodelers. Now, here's what I am not about to show you. I am not about to show you 5 pillars that have about 10 or 12 points each, and I am not going to tell you that all of those things are things that you need to promote. I'm telling you this is the menu of things to choose from. And it's not comprehensive. Maybe there's some things you want to choose from that are not on the list, but let's start with this one. The first pillar is your products. Well, what about your products? Are they stronger? Are they more durable? Are they more energy efficient? Are they better looking? Do you have more colors? Are they more secure? Do they operate better? Do you have better selection? Do they have better manufacturer warranty? Do they have better brand names? Are they more effective? Do they last longer? Do they fit tighter? Are they heavy duty? What is it about them? Now, if you're a kitchen remodeler, then maybe some of these things don't really apply so much because it's more about your workmanship than the products. But if you're selling siding or roofing or windows or gutter protection or sunrooms, bathroom type products, then products are going to be important. Now, I want you to notice something about this particular pillar of identity. It's 1 out of 5. There's 4 more coming, right? You see that blank space over there? About to fill it up here in a second. Guess what happens when most companies start trying to figure out their identity? They focus in and start on the products because it's the most obvious thing. And I'll give you the most obvious example. Well, our window is better because of blah, 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 right? Who sells windows? Right? Is your window better? And that's good. Here's what I'm not saying. Who cares how good your window is? But here's what I'm also saying. Yes, let's talk about how good your window is, but then let's also talk about other things that aren't related to specifically the window necessarily, because the entire conversation matters. The second is workmanship. Maybe it has to do with not cutting corners, attention to detail, doing things right the first time, slowing down for quality, using quality materials. Work with a kitchen and bath remodeler in Kansas City called Jericho. I was having the identity conversation with them. They said, we use better fixtures for kitchen and bath sinks. And I said, okay, who cares? They said, well, we care, and our customers care. I said, well, how are they different? They said, well, we use Moen. I said, okay, doesn't everybody? And they said, no. Most companies are going to default to builder grade unless it's upgraded somehow. We don't ever use builder grade. Why not? Because they suck. Well, what do you mean they suck? Well, they suck because they're made out of crappy materials. Well, what do you mean they're made out of crappy materials? See how this process, it's a Socratic method. Well, they're made out of a lot of plastic. Ours are completely metal. Really? And then he said something, and I went, interesting. Yeah, our typical kitchen sink faucet weighs 10 pounds. Our competitors are going to use plastic Chinese ones that are 1.5 pounds. Now, you could upgrade from that to something better, but that's where they start. He said, we would never dream of selling that thing. So then we write a blog post and we write a commercial. And guess what the commercial says? When it comes to kitchen remodeling, most people want to know, how much does it cost? Here's a better question to ask. How much does it weigh? Because the weight is a definite indicator of quality. At Jericho, we only use faucets and fixtures from Moen. They're solid steel. They're made in America. The average kitchen faucet weighs 10 pounds. Our competitors use cheap, imported, plasticky Chinese stuff. It weighs 1.5 pounds typically. Remember what I said earlier? I said, write this down. And then a lot of people wrote it down. Marketing is storytelling. This story about 10-pound faucets, it's exactly the same story as 172 hardwood dowel rods. It's just for a different company in a different situation, but it's the same process. So here's the question for you. What are your shower heads? Okay? Experience, worker oversight, no subs, training, installation standards, warranties. The third pillar of identity, bedside manner. This is how you treat people. Punctual. I have an HVAC client, very large company. One of their core values is punctuality. You know how many times they've been late for a call with me? In 5 years, about 20 times they've been late for a call, and every single time they have texted me and said, we're running a couple minutes late. Instead of 3, we'll call you at 3:02. And then at 3:02, the phone rings. They fine their managers $10 for every minute they're late going into meetings. Guess how much they collect in fines in a typical year? None. See, this is because it's part of their identity, and they actually, truly do it. But here's what's cool, because now we can go out and we can tell stories. We can tell stories like, we charge our managers $10 for every minute they're late. Here's why, because we want everybody in our company to know, from the receptionist to the executives all the way to the technicians who are coming to your house, that being on time is 100% important. And people hear that and they go, wow, must be important. Core values, integrity, respect, compassion. This is not an exhaustive list. This is a list that I want you to consider and think about. What is your company's core values? And then finally, culture and reputation. This is kind of the catch-all for stuff that didn't conveniently fit into the other 4 pillars. Your culture, community outreach, reputation, financial stability, origin stories, online reviews, financing, awards, associations, stuff like this, okay? Now here's what I want you to do. Look at the bottom there. Select the top 3 from each pillar that most closely maps to your company. This is a real thing. I want you to do this. This is where it all starts. Out of each of those 5 pillars, what are the top 3 that map most closely to the DNA of your company? This is where it all starts, right here on this slide. All right, I'm assuming that everyone got that. And then we go to something called the trust pyramid. All right? The trust pyramid at the bottom has identity points. I've earlier called these platitudes. I'm also going to call them identity points, but this is a foundation. This is where we start. The next thing on the trust pyramid is stories, examples, and comparisons. This is the difference between saying our cabinets are stronger and saying our cabinets have 172 hardwood dowel rods and they're drilled by a guy named Dan, and here's how it affects the longevity of the cabinet. This is the same thing as saying our competitors have a 1.5 pound faucet. We have a 10-pound faucet that's made in America. Stories, examples, comparisons. This is where the rubber hits the road, right there. This is where your identity starts to really bloom into its full, butterfly? I don't know. Couldn't think of a word. Above that, you see social proof. Social proof is testimonials, reviews. This is other people saying that they have had experience with you. Now, here's the problem with most reviews. Most reviews say something like this: we used Jericho remodeling and they were awesome. Here's another way to say a review or a testimonial. We went with Jericho because quality is the most important thing to us, and when we found out that the installation standards were high and that they used 10-pound faucets instead of 1.5-pound faucets, we knew that that's who we wanted to do business with. So, well, how do you get people to say that? And the answer is coaching. Anybody ever heard of a brand ambassador program? This is something that we need to have a talk about a little bit later, not today. Brand ambassador is a guy that goes in after the sale, sits down with your customers and says, how did it go, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson? And they say, it was fantastic. And the brand ambassador says, could we get you to leave a review on this iPad right now? Tell me, Mrs. Johnson, what is it that you liked about Jericho? And then the customer says, well, I like blah, blah, blah. Oh, what did you think about the 10-pound faucet? The 172 hardwood dowel rods, the whatever your identity is based on. Would you mind saying that in the review? Would you mind if I got a picture of you next to your new kitchen? Would you mind if you held this sign up that says, I'm 100% thrilled with Jericho, my new Jericho kitchen? And then we put that on social media. And when other people are browsing social media, this comes up, and we start to push them along this line. Not just, hey, I love Jericho, but hey, I love Jericho because of X, Y, Z, ABC, identity, 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 right? We're telling a story. Always be telling a story. Okay? Start with identity-based blog posts. I said this earlier, now I'm going to show you how to actually do it. Create an engaging identity-based blog post that should tell stories that build trust. Wait, I need to go back to the trust pyramid. I didn't quite finish that up. Above social proof, we have evidence. I'm not going to touch on that in too much detail, but we could actually create evidence. We could create a video that says, here's our faucet, here's a scale, here's our competitor's faucet, oh yeah, look, 1.6 pounds. Yeah, I guess we exaggerated. It's not 1.5 pounds, it's 1.6 pounds. Sorry. Now let's see what happens if we throw it at a drywall wall. Bounce. Here, let's take this one. Hole. So why would you do that? Because I'm trying to show evidence that it's freaking heavy. Let's get a Sawzall and try to cut ours and watch it ruin the blade, and let's try to Sawzall theirs and see what happens. You see what I'm saying? Telling the story. And then at the very top, PE. This is not gym class. This is personal experience. We want the personal experience when your salesperson shows up and is in the home to be 100% consistent with what they thought and what they've been led to believe through the marketing process. Here's the problem. If you don't have a strong identity like we're discussing today, the entire pyramid becomes PE. Remember? That's the salesperson showing up at spot A on this spectrum and saying, all right, I hope you got 3 hours because I got a lot of work to do. Beating them into submission. Okay, got them. I'm kind of making light of it, and I know you know I'm not serious, but you also know that I actually am serious. Remember my client in Massachusetts, 25 years of beating people to a pulp? It matters. Okay? All right, so now we're going to get to the blog post part of this. Tell stories that builds trust. You want to create interesting, curious type headlines, and then you put headlines on every web page so that people can't miss them. The result is that people will dig through your website. Why would you want people to dig through your website? Well, because if they're digging through your website based on interesting, curious, identity-based headlines, they're going to start to fall in love with your company, and dwell time is going to go up. Dwell time is a really important metric for search engine optimization, SEO. We can have a whole hour-long conversation about SEO. I hope we do someday, but here's how it goes in the very, very short version. The algorithm that Google has to try to figure out who gets ranked highest is highly dependent on what site do other people like the most. And Google uses factors to try to figure out how much relevance and interesting stuff is on websites. And the number one factor is, well, how long do people stay on the site? How long do people stay on the site? If they stay for a long time, then people must like it, and then Google's going to push it up in the rankings. How do you get people to stay on your site for a long time? Well, have interesting, relevant information that is based on your identity. You don't think somebody's going to stay on your site if you've got a video of you chucking a frickin' faucet through a wall? Oh, nobody will watch that. That's juvenile. Meanwhile, 10,000 views. People will fall in love with your company. Google will push you up the rankings. Everything is going to be good that happens. Everything. So this is why we start with the blog post. This is not the final thing. This is where we start. Because now, if we've got a blog post that tells the story, we can now take that blog post and we can now put it into everything else that we want to put it into. So let's look at a few examples. All right, this is a company called Solid State Construction. This is a blog post called Anatomy of a Remodeling Sales Gangster. Now, again, remember, as I go through these slides, it just represents scrolling because I can't actually scroll because it's not a live internet feed. So we have a definition of sales gangster. A remodeling salesperson with a mobster mentality who uses underhanded sales tactics, high pressure, and deceit to force you to buy the last person you'd ever want to invite in your home, the total opposite of a solid state construction project consultant. See diagram below for details. And then as you scroll down, you see this. Telltale signs you're dealing with a salesman who chooses high-pressure solicitation over customer education. And then if you scroll up to see the whole photo, you see this. It's a photo of it's not a photo, it's an illustration of a sales gangster. And we talk about his eyes and how they're shifty, and his watch is going to spend an hour and a half to 3 hours in your home trying to twist your arm. And if you keep scrolling down, you see Anatomy of a Solid State Project Consultant. And it has all the same elements, ears, mouth, watch, hand, etc., but it's actually good. It's favorable. His ears listen to you to understand. Let's go back. This guy's eyes sizes you up like a lion preying on a gazelle. Our guy, ears, listens to you to understand what you want. Mouth discusses your needs and provides expert advice without fast-talking sales games. Now, here's what we're doing. All the way back to the very beginning of this presentation, Holiday Inn Express, the shower head, the sign on the shower, we're pointing at the shower head. In this particular case, can anybody identify what the identity point is? No sales pressure, which would be found conveniently under Identity Pillar 2, Identity Pillar 3, bedside manner. No sales pressure. This is what it actually looks like. Here's one for a company called Exterior Pro. We paid $629.54 for new flowers after our roofers ruined our old ones. Our roofing crew damaged the customer's very valuable flowers, so we foot the entire bill for new ones. And then it tells the story. We don't have to read this in detail. You can go to their website and you can look this up and read it yourself. On this occasion, a really expensive accident happened. Fast forward a few weeks, we got a bill. We paid it. In the end, all was well. There's photos. It's broken up. And at the bottom, you can also see there's related posts. We're trying to get people to see that there's other things. So after they read this article about stepping on flowers, now, here's a good question for you. Why are we telling this story about stepping on flowers? What do you think the identity point is? Let's try to reverse engineer this. Core value, integrity. Core value, integrity. People say to me all the time, oh, we have core values. Well, okay, what's your core value? It's integrity. Okay, well, give me an example. Because if you can't give me an example of what integrity looks like when it's actually manifest in real life in your company, then it's just a word. It's not actually something that's a core value. Oh, well, we stepped on the flowers and then we fixed it. We made it better. And you tell people that story, and after they hear that story, guess what they say? Wow. Yeah, of course things go wrong. And this company not only has the cojones to admit it, but they showed us what they did to make it right. That's really cool. This is the kind of company I'd like to do business with. Now, what if you went on the radio or on TV and said, man, you know what? we do 1,000 jobs a year, and 995 times everything goes great. But once in a while, man, this particular case, this customer had this certain blah, 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 whatever it is, flour, and our workers were just no excuses. They just weren't paying attention, and they ruined the flowers. When I found out, I was devastated because we never want to treat people's property like that. But as soon as I found out, here's what I did. I went out to the homeowner. I gave them, whatever, blah, 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 $629. It was an expensive lesson to learn, but one that I would pay every single time, 1,000,000 times in a row, even if it bankrupted my company, because here's why. That's how we treat our customers. Now, you start planting that seed in the soil, frequency and consistency being the fertilizer and water for growing marketing. And after a while, people hear that, and they hear that, and they hear that, and guess what? They say to themselves, I need new roofing. I need a new roof. I'm going to call that company that steps on people's flowers. You understand. This is air conditioning. We give our techs incentive to slow down and do it right instead of hurry up and get to the next job. Why? Some Southern California heating and air conditioning companies schedule techs 8 to 12 calls a day, way too many. And then a rush heating and air conditioning repair, here's what it's like, here's what happens. We explain it to them a different way, and then we talk about how we only have 2 to 3 appointments a day because it's better. It actually works better. Then we take that and we turn it into a radio ad. This is Leland from Service Champions. We could actually play this, but we don't have the internet connection. Do you know that we give our techs incentives to slow down and do the job right instead of hurry up and get it done? It's true. Most companies assign their technicians 8 to 12 calls a day, and 6 is considered a minimum. But our technicians, on average, are only scheduled for 2 to 3 a day. That allows them to slow down and actually listen to you. Imagine that. It also allows us to properly diagnose and fix problems. In the event of a tune-up, it actually allows us to perform a thorough tune-up, so your system will last another year without a problem instead of just quickly looking for big, expensive problems and moving on like the other guys do. At the end of the day, we award bonuses to our technicians on quality, not quantity. That's why we truly are service champions. Oh, and I'm going to tell you something. If you're running 3 or 4 ads like that at a time, and you rotate to other identity points 3 or 4 times during the year, here's what happens. After a while, people hear that. You're pointing at the shower head, and they believe it. Confirmation bias is now working in your favor. Because here's what's going to happen. Think about this. The technician comes over to perform the repair, and now you actually notice that it's taking them a long time, and you're happy. Whereas before, without pointing, they take how long they're going to take. You don't notice. You give them no credit for being awesome because you didn't know to look and to think about it. Point at the shower head. Then we put it into a print ad. We slow down to do the job right instead of hurrying up to get the job done. In a fast-paced, hurried world, we slow down to do the job right. We reformat this, we put it on a billboard. We reformat this, we put it on Facebook. We reformat this, we put it on internet display ads. People see it. Boom, 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 boom. Frequency, consistency, frequency, consistency, frequency, consistency. After a while, they believe it. We send out text messages to remind people before we show up. Anatomy of a sales gangster. Hi, Josh. It's Jeff from Solid State Construction. Looking forward to our appointment on Thursday, January 14th. Here's what to expect from me as your project consultant. We're pushing them down this spectrum using marketing. Hi, Josh. It's Jeff from Service Champions. I want to follow up on your quote. Any reason not to move forward? Unlike other folks in the area, we will slow down and do it right. Hi, Josh. It's Jeff from Houston Roofing. You're still looking to replace your roof? Make sure you avoid fraud by following these steps. Hey Josh, it's Jason, owner of Exterior Pro. Thanks for choosing us for your new roof. We go above and beyond to make sure installation is as smooth as possible. Rest assured we'll make things right if the rare case that something doesn't go as planned. I'm just telling you flat out, this stuff works. And it works huge. And I think I'm seeing light bulbs on over your head where you're going, totally makes sense. I totally get it, dude. We can put it into a brochure. It's not done until you say it's done, period. We're sticklers for details. We obsess over perfection. We can put it into postcards. Meet Tim. Tim sells replacement windows. They'll sit in your home for 2.5 painful hours so you finally wear down and say yes. You know how remodeling contractors have earned a bad reputation? Well, they earned it. You guys know Steve Rennenkamp, right? He's like a longtime member of this group, I think. I know he is. He called me one day. He said, hey, we won the Torch Award. I said, who cares? He said, no, it's a big deal. It's the third time we've won it. I said, nobody knows what it is and nobody cares. He says, no, everybody cares. I said, Steve, you're a nice guy. You do good work, but nobody knows what a Torch Award is and nobody cares. Here's the real question. Why did you win the Torch Award? Oh, because we have integrity. Well, how do you have integrity? He told me this story about the time when they botched the door. They went back, they botched it a second time, so they went back and they did it, finally got it right, and they lost $8,200. I said, that's what people care about. And oh, by the way, because of that, we did something called winning a Torch Award. We put that in the newspaper. That works. All right, let's wrap this up because I am getting all kinds of signals that we are donezo. Let's start with your website. Let's say you hire a new salesperson. The salesperson it costs you X dollars to find them, to hire them, to train them, salary, truck, leads. They go out, they close 10%. Let's say your going rate average is 30%. Second week, 10%. Third week, 10%. How many weeks do you give them before you get tired of their 10% closing ratio? How long? Fourth week, 10%. Fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth week, 10%. 39th week, 10%. It's so easy to fire a salesperson who can't perform, even if you've invested money in them. But somehow when it comes to your website, which is underperforming, you either don't notice it or you don't care, and you say, well, we just spent all this money to make this website, so we don't want to redo it again. Well, maybe it needs to be fired. Here's what I want to do. I'll just give you a quick little offer. If you want to see how you're doing on identity, I'd be happy to do an audit on your website for two things. Number one, for search engine optimization to see how well your website is doing at being found by Google. When people are trying to find what you sell, does it actually work? It's broken down into multiple pieces and parts so that we can discuss exactly what things are going right and or wrong with your website. You can see in this particular company, they scored 17. That's out of 100. The typical scores that we're seeing are somewhere between teens to 20s, sometimes into 30s. There is a lot of work to be done. Companies are not good, objectively speaking, at SEO, at identity. And then the second part of it is conversion ability. And if you look at that, identity, diggable content, social proof, engagement. Let's find out how well your website's doing in these regards. Let's see if the identity is present or if it's not. If it is, awesome. Now you know. If it's not, maybe you need a little bit of rehabilitation. So if that's something you want to take advantage of, just go to this web address, level10audit.com. There's a form on there. Just fill it out. And it'll go to my SEO team. Somebody will contact you to confirm a time to go over the audit. It'll be sometime about 2 to 2.5 weeks from now because we're really jammed up with audits. But if you'd like to do that, I will personally get on the phone with you and go over the audit and say, hey, here's what we found. Here's some areas where you're weak. Here's some areas where you're strong. Here's some areas for improvement. So if you'd like to do that, just go fill out that form, and that's it. I was going to take some Q&A, but I think we're out of time, so I think we'll just go ahead and end up here. If anybody wants to talk to me, I'll be mulling about, so I'd be happy to talk to you then. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Rick.